Good morning. February 3rd, 2021. I'm Pastor Rusty, and these are my inspirational thoughts for the day. In considering a text in Matthew 22, we have a place where the Sadducees, now we've talked about the Pharisees at length and how legalist they were as far as their tithing and things like that. They had no love, no compassion, no mercy. But the Sadducees was another group. They believed, they didn't believe in the oral law. They didn't believe in an oral interpretation. They believed in the written law, only the law of Moses. And they didn't go past that. They didn't have all the prophets and all the other writings that they would adhere to. And they were really, really strict about temple activities. And so here's the Sadducees, and they were part of the Great Sanhedrin. 71-member council, like a Supreme Court that included Pharisees and Sadducees and priests and things like that. So here the Sadducees come up to Jesus, trying to trick him up, just like the Pharisees. And they ask a question. They said, basically, Master, so a guy marries a girl, and while they're married, he gets killed, not having any children. I know the law of Moses requires then his brother to marry her. So they go through several brothers that marry this woman. None of them have a child. And so they ask Jesus, so in the resurrection, which they didn't believe in a resurrection. They didn't believe in the kind of spiritual nature of those things. And so they were trying to trick Jesus up with something they didn't even believe. They said, whose wife will she be? Well, Jesus' response in Matthew 22:29 is, you are in error, being you don't know the Scripture. And then he goes on and explains that Jesus is not that God is not the God of the dead, but the living, because he says, I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Jacob. I am the God. And so it's a present tense thing. These people aren't dead. They're just no longer on the earth. And see, that's an interesting thing, because the Sadducees didn't believe that. And so Jesus got them by saying, you don't know the Scripture. And, I think about that. I wonder how many people today are in error because they don't know the intricacies and all the teachings, and they don't do it in a systematic, with a good hermeneutic. They haven't studied these things out to see how that they work together. So Jesus says you err in not knowing the Scripture. Now, that could be pretty condemning, especially if you're of one of the religious leadership groups like the Sadducees. I've heard people say, the Sadducees, the Pharisees, they kept all the law and they were legalists, and so they were fair, you see. And then the Sadducees, well, they didn't believe in a resurrection. They didn't believe in life after death, so they were sad, you see. So it's an interesting way to remember it. But I think one of the greatest things that's most telling is Jesus says, you're in error because you don't even know the Scripture. You don't understand what you're even bringing to me. You don't have a deep enough concept. And I think, that's probably exactly true for a lot of us. There are things that we have opinions about that we don't have a knowledge base of. There are things that we feel a certain way about things, but we don't really know what the Scripture teaches. And sometimes we run into things in the Scripture that actually don't work well with us, in our morals and our ethics. And so we think, well, that can't be true because my God wouldn't be that way. So we just simply throw it away without understanding the historical context, without understanding the audience relevance of the time that it was written or the time that it was said. The Sadducees thought they were on top of things. They had their own opinion about how things should be interpreted. And I wonder about that today, because so many people are running around talking about eschatology and how things are going to end. And I wonder if Jesus wouldn't say the same thing to them today. You err in not knowing the Scripture. See, we take a lot of people's opinions that we respect, and then we get camp-minded. We want to be in this camp or in that camp, and we want to recite by rote the things that our group says without actually doing investigative research into these things. And for a Christian to not spend time in investigative research about what we believe, that's dangerous ground. And you'll find that if you really get into some deep studies, there may be some things that you're willing to let go of simply because the Scripture doesn't support that teaching. The last thing I would want my Messiah to say to me today is, Rusty, you err in not knowing the Scripture. So I'm going to spend some time today studying different aspects of Scripture and studying different things, and get you a good dictionary, get you a good history book of the Bible, read the Bible, and then read some interpretations of it. Dig into the original languages as best you can. There's lots of great helps out there. You don't have to be a Greek scholar, and you don't have to be a Hebrew scholar, or even Aramaic or German or Italian or Latin, I guess I should say, to understand some of the teachings of Scripture, because God's had men and women down through the years who have done the research and done the digging Now, just because they're smarter than you doesn't mean they know more than you. So always take everything any commentator says with a grain of salt. Pray about it and let the Spirit guide you. This is a day the Lord hath made. Let's rejoice. Let's be glad in it. And let's understand what the Scripture means. Let's not err in not knowing the Scripture. I'm Pastor Rusty. I'll be coming to you this evening with a Wednesday night Bible study. And we're going to look at another unique story in Scripture. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.